I signed up for Barrow Point because I wanted quiet, not peace. I don't think people like me ever really get that, but quiet. After my divorce, I couldn't sleep in houses anymore. Walls felt too thin, phones too loud, people too close. I like machines. I liked knowing when something broke, it was fixable. I'd done a few short stints at NOAA outposts and even spent a summer at Thule in Greenland. But Barrow Point, whole different beast. 6-month winter rotation. No sun after November. No fresh drop-ins once the last plane leaves. 6 people, 1 base. That's it. We got our final resupply October 17th. I remember because the pilot, Wes, made some dumb joke about us being the only Americans spending Thanksgiving 500 miles from a bird. After the plane took off, the 6 of us stood in the snow and watched it disappear. It was quiet then, too. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own heartbeat against the parka. I should have known that silence wouldn't last. First month went smooth. The crew was decent, lean but balanced. Dr. Bernhard was the lead climatologist, polite in a half-British way. There was Trevors, the new hydrologist who never stopped talking about her dog. Mikhailov handled logistics, borderline feral but sharp. Elsa kept to herself, logging atmospheric data. And then there was Kumar. Young, maybe 30, soft-spoken, but always watching. I was in charge of mechanical systems, power grid, fuel lines, climate control, emergency heating, life support stuff. If I did my job right, no one noticed. If I didn't, people died. Late November, we got our first real whiteout. Wind pushed steady at 50 knots. Temperatures fell to minus 40. That's when the boiler tripped. No warning, no error logs, just a complete system dropout at 2:13 a.m. I ran diagnostics and found one of the thermostats in the south wing fried. Looked like an arc burn, like someone shorted it with a tool. Odd, but not impossible. Faulty gear, maybe a surge. I replaced it, notified Bernhard, logged the failure. But then it happened again. 2 days later, different wing. This time, the unit wasn't just burned. The casing had been unscrewed and removed, like someone had deliberately disabled it. I brought it up during morning meal. Anyone working on the heating systems besides me? Blank stares. Mikhailov grunted. Why? You break something? No, someone else did. That got a laugh from Trevors. Matt, it's negative 40. You think someone's out there pranking the thermostat? I didn't argue. I just logged it again. I started locking the utility room. Logged every part 1 removed. Rechecked every damn relay in the control board. And still, the failures continued. By mid-December, 3 more systems failed. Each time in a different section, always during weather events when visibility was near 0. Elsa started keeping a flashlight under her pillow. Kumar stopped showing up to group meals. I knew something was off. Something wasn't random. Someone was testing us. I finally caught a break New Year's Eve. Another whiteout had hit. I was on a routine inspection of the fuel lines when I saw tracks, boot prints, barely visible in the drift, leading away from the base. I followed them 80 meters until they vanished behind a snowbank near the auxiliary shed. Inside the shed was storage for outdated equipment, analog radios, a busted snowmobile, metal cabinets that hadn't been opened in years. But one of them was open, and inside, tucked behind some old sonar gear, was a handheld radio with a blinking LED. Not ours. I scanned the frequencies. The device was receiving, not broadcasting, and the signal was local. That night, I ran a station-wide sweep. In Dr. Bunhart's room, under his bunk, I found a USB drive and a small black notebook. Nothing labeled. No security seals. Just graphite notes in tight, tidy handwriting. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. The notes started in early November. Page after page of log entries, each describing psychological observations of the crew, mood fluctuations, social dynamics, sleep patterns, recorded instances of conflict. My name appeared on page 6. Curzon responds predictably to pressure, protective of systems. Notes tampering with HVAC provokes control fixation. The most recent entry, final phase, system stressors complete, control group isolated, initiate full SIM isolation within 10 days. I couldn't breathe. I backed out of the room and locked myself in the server alcove, trembling. Final phase? Full SIM? Was this an experiment? I opened the USB drive on a secure machine. There were audio files, logs, voice recordings of conversations I'd never seen anyone record. Some were of me, talking in private. arguing about the thermostat failures. Even dream talking one night. He'd been studying us. The mechanical failures weren't accidental. They were deliberate stressors. And I'd walked into it blind. I waited until morning. Bernhard was already in the lab, humming like he always did when processing ice core data. I stood outside the glass and just watched him. The way he smiled to himself, the way he nodded occasionally, like everything was going exactly to plan. I confronted him mid-morning. Brought the radio, the notebook, the USB. He didn't even deny it. His expression was calm, collected. "You weren't supposed to find that yet," he said. Yet. I was going to brief the group during final phase. This station isn't just a climate base. It's a stress environment study under NSF grant review. You're the last control group. You tampered with life support. It was never lethal. Only calculated pressure to observe decision breakdown. Group behavior. Leadership emergence. You, Matt, emerged exactly as modeled. I think I blacked out for a second. I was shaking. "You could have killed someone." He shrugged. "We needed a pure data set." I went to the comms room to call it in. The sat link was down. Not offline. Erased. The system had been reformatted. Someone had physically reset the module. There were no backups. I tried to get the others, but Kumar was gone. Elsa locked herself in the comms bunk. Trevor started crying the moment I told her what I found. Mikhailov went straight to Bernhard's lab with a crowbar. I didn't follow. I didn't have to. I heard the scream. It took 2 hours to get the lab door open. Bernhard had barricaded himself inside. We finally forced it open and found him sitting in a parka and gloves at the main desk, smiling like a goddamn maniac. The temperature inside the lab had been deliberately lowered. His breath hung in the air like smoke. He was already dead, frozen stiff, peaceful. On the desk in front of him was a recorder. A sticky note. "Play this first." We did. His voice was calm, crisp, methodical. He detailed every phase, every planned failure, every stress test, every moment he documented. And at the end, he said this: "One subject always survives. The one who adapts, who repairs, who takes control. That was always going to be you, Matt. This is your isolation now. Let's see how long you last." We buried him in the ice that night. There was no ceremony, no closure, just a mound of snow and 6 pairs of eyes that couldn't meet. Except we were 5 now, because Kumar never came back, and we couldn't open his bunk room. The lock had been fused from the inside. It's February now. Supply drop isn't due until March. The heating systems are stable, but I double-check them every day. Elsa won't speak to me. Mikhailov spends hours outside, walking alone. Trevor's has gone silent. I listen to that recording sometimes. Not the whole thing, just the ending. One subject always survives. I think he was wrong. None of us are surviving. We're just waiting for the next failure, and hoping it's mechanical, not human. The thing no one tells you about filming in the Arctic is that sound disappears first. You expect your nose to freeze, your fingers to ache, your skin to crack in the wind. But the silence, that sterile, glassy quiet, steals into your ears until your own voice sounds dubbed. Synthetic, like you're narrating someone else's footage. That was the first thing I noticed when we crossed into the Kara Sea. By then, I'd been aboard the Vyuga, an aging Russian icebreaker retrofitted for mixed cargo and research, for 6 days. My job was to produce a short-form documentary for an international shipping coalition. Nothing fancy. B-roll of container lifts, voiceovers about melting ice routes, some dramatic drone shots of ice cracks. Industrial optimism packaged for YouTube. What I got instead was frostbitten fingers, 2 missing crew members, and a signal that never should have existed. We were 2 days past Novaya Zemlya when I heard it. I was in the communications room downloading raw GPS logs when the ship's old HF receiver crackled alive. That wasn't unusual. Static, interference, naval chatter, it was background noise. But this was different. 3 pulses, a pause, then a woman's voice. English. Channel 8, please. Another pause, then nothing. I froze. The comms officer, Pyotr, was on break. I jotted down the time, the frequency. I rewound the tape reel. Yes, tape, and played it again. Same thing. Channel 8, please. That night, I asked the captain, Markov, about it. He was a gaunt man with tired eyes and nicotine-stained fingers. Barely spoke English unless he had to. Channel 8 is not in use, he said. Maybe military. It was in English, I replied. Female voice. She sounded scared. He nodded slowly, then lit another cigarette and walked away. The next morning, our course had shifted. We were off the main shipping lane, skirting a pressure ridge deep into unbroken pack ice. I found the first officer, Gleb, in the chart room. Why are we rerouting? He looked surprised, I noticed. Captain wants to check coordinates. Maybe old signal. You mean the one I heard? He didn't answer, just tapped the map, showing a position 70 miles north of our planned course. Nothing marked, just a flat white expanse labeled in Cyrillic. I didn't push. I just kept filming. Day 9, the first deckhand went missing. His name was Valentine. Young, cheerful, always mugging for my camera. He'd been assigned to night watch. When his replacement came to switch shifts, he was gone. No one had heard anything. His radio was dead. His gloves were still in the storage locker. We spent half the day searching. Then the blizzard hit. Visibility dropped to 0. The captain said Valentine must have slipped overboard. It was common, he told me. Happens quickly. Ice swallows you whole. No ceremony. I didn't believe it. Valentine was careful. He was also strong. He didn't just vanish. I watched the footage I'd shot that afternoon, frame by frame. At timestamp 1426, behind a stack of containers, there was a silhouette. It wasn't Valentine. On day 11, I started filming everything. Piotr wouldn't let me in the comms room anymore. Captain's orders, he said. The HF receiver had been shut off. When I asked why, he just smiled like it wasn't up to him. That night, I found the crew manifest taped behind a supply locker. There were 16 names, but I'd only ever seen 15 people. When I brought it up to Gleb, he shrugged. Maybe mistake. Maybe someone left before you came. But I knew I wasn't wrong. I'd been filming for days. I rewatched every clip, counted every face. Only 15. So where was crewman number 16? 2 days later, another deckhand disappeared. Ivan, mid-40s. Quiet. We'd shared coffee once during a sunrise shoot. He was last seen on the outer deck, inspecting tension cables during a mild windstorm. His tether was found snapped clean at the base. No signs of distress. No blood. No impact points. We weren't moving. There was no way he went overboard without someone hearing it. Markov didn't even call a full crew search. Just closed the logs and told me to stop filming crew activity without permission. I went back to my cabin and locked the door. That night, I woke up to tapping. 3 slow taps. Then silence. By day 15, we were in a dead zone. No comms. No GPS lock. Just drift. I tried to call my producer via the satellite uplink. Blocked. Every device had been restricted to internal access. I confronted Markov. You knew where that signal came from. He didn't answer. You took us here on purpose. Still silence. Finally, he said, there are places on this ice no one claims. No maps. Just void. Sometimes things echo. What does that mean? He exhaled smoke through his nose. I do not know. I only follow orders. That night, I picked the lock to the comms room. The HF receiver was gone. In its place was a weatherproof recorder. Analog. Russian labeled. I played the last tape. The voice from Channel 8 came through again. Channel 8. Yuga, please respond. Then a crackle. Then static. Then a voice I recognized. Markov's. Negative. Do not respond. This channel is compromised. Return to original vector immediately. Repeat. Do not approach coordinates. It was dated last year. The next morning, I packed my gear. We had no ice escort, no air support, no comms. I told Gleb I was going to make for the emergency beacon on foot. It was a bluff. He didn't argue. Instead, he handed me something, a handheld flare and a laminated card with Russian emergency phrases. He said, if they try to stop you, go loud. I waited until midnight. Half the crew was asleep. The other half probably didn't care. I made it to the lower deck, past the cargo hold, toward the auxiliary launch sled. Then I saw it. A steel container, unmarked, lashed down with fresh cable. Frost-crusted. Vents open. Inside were 2 things. A backup HF radio. A body bag. Half-zipped. The tag said L. Kovalenko, the 16th crew member. His throat had been cut. And the radio? It was still transmitting. Channel 8, please. The same signal. But now, the voice sounded like me. I ran. I didn't care who saw me. I sprinted up the deck, through the bridge, into the captain's quarters. He wasn't there. Only his coat. And a clipboard. It was a printed report. Operation Ice Widow, Signal Seeding Trial / Phase 2. Subject, M/V Vuga. Objective, psychological response to unattributed broadcast distress in isolated environment. Outcome, preliminary containment breached. Memory distortion observed. Subjects demonstrating instability. There were timestamps. Valentine disappearance, stimulus deployed. Ivan disappearance, response within parameters. Winter escalation, subject entering critical stage. I staggered back, clutching the clipboard. They'd done this on purpose. Not just Markov. Everyone. I didn't sleep that night. At 4:10 a.m., I heard footsteps outside my cabin. Then the tapping. 3 slow knocks. I opened the door. Markov stood there. No coat. No gloves. Just a flare gun in one hand and a small recorder in the other. "You can leave," he said. "But understand, there's nothing left to find. No signal. No survivors. Only you now." Then he walked into the snow and vanished. We were rescued 4 days later. I don't remember the pickup. Just a bright light. Cold hands. A medical tent. I told them what happened. They nodded, said I was dehydrated. Disoriented. That the Vuga had suffered a systems failure. That 3 crew members were missing, likely from exposure. That Markov had suffered a psychotic break and fled the vessel. I asked about Channel 8. They said no such frequency existed. It's been 6 months. Sometimes, at night, I still hear it in my headphones. Channel 8, please. But now it's my own voice. And I know what's coming next. Because I was crew member 17. And the experiment isn't over. They dropped me off by Snowcat at 6:40 a.m. No ceremony. Just a nod, a fuel can, and a promise to return in 4 weeks, if the weather held. I watched the taillights fade into the blowing white until I couldn't tell sky from ground. Then I turned toward the station. Relay Theta 9 stood alone on a broad flat of Arctic ice somewhere west of Svalbard. No signage, no flags, not even a full antenna mast. Just a squat prefabricated module sunk into the drift, with a comms tower barely taller than the roofline. No tracks around it. No equipment parked nearby. Just one trail of wind-filled boot prints leading away into the blue twilight of endless day. I took the key from my pack and unlocked the hatch. My breath caught. Inside smelled like metal, dust, and bleach. No coffee cups. No signs of life. I was alone. Or supposed to be. My assignment was straightforward. Audit the system logs, recalibrate the weather sensor array, and confirm radio beacon continuity. For weeks, solo. Food and fuel stocked. Emergency comms tied to a Russian repeater net, pinged daily. I'd done these gigs before. Remote work suited me, especially after what happened in 21 with my wife and the property sale. I didn't talk about that anymore. I just kept my hands busy and my mouth shut. But this post felt off. It started with the ping log. Each relay station is supposed to log heartbeat pings every 4 hours. Tiny radio confirmations that the station is alive. But Theta 9's logs had holes. Regular gaps. Not data loss, just missing entries. Whole blocks with perfectly timed system uptime, but no heartbeat logged. The last tech must have noticed, I thought. Maybe flagged it. But the most recent entries were scrubbed clean. No initials. No notes. I opened the logbook and flipped to the last page. Aaron, if you're reading this, I couldn't finish it. They pulled my access. Watch the tower lights. Log everything. P. The station manifest listed only one tech before me, Lionel Abrams. No P. I should have left then. 3 days in, I saw the first flash. I was brushing my teeth when the tower light blinked out, then came back on, blinking in a slow triplet pattern. 3 short bursts. Pause. Repeat. Not a standard distress pattern. Not Morse. Not diagnostic. I checked the hardware control. No errors. No override. The system said the light had remained steady. I stood at the window and stared at it for an hour. Eventually, it stopped blinking. The next issue came from the external sensors. Every day, I'd walk the perimeter to inspect the cabling. The line ran underground, but some above-ground markers needed brushing clear. Day 6, I found 3 of the orange flags pulled out and jammed into the snow, upside down. Not torn, just flipped. I bent to reset one, and something sharp jabbed my glove. A piece of glass. Smooth, triangular. I dug down. Found a shattered watch face buried under maybe 6 inches of snow. Its hour hand was stuck at 2. The minute hand ticked. When I came back inside, the system time on the weather station had reset to 2 hours. By the end of week 1, I'd stopped sleeping. The relay's radio scanner kept hissing at odd hours. Once I woke up to it whispering a tone I hadn't heard since military service, a lost carrier ping, like someone was trying to establish handshake contact. But no ID, no frequency origin, just a slow, high tone and a faint click. I pulled up the station comm history and manually decoded the last 10 inbound signals. 6 were normal, for didn't exist in the database. 1 was tagged as a transitional burst. It read, "Duval, stay." Even my own voice, recorded inside the relay during moments I thought I'd been alone. The files were labeled not by number, but by role. Subject, maintenance, Duval. Subject, observation, P. Subject, control, not applicable. The final folder was titled, handover underscore incomplete. I called the emergency uplink. Dead. No tone. No carrier. I tried the fallback sat phone. It connected for exactly 7 seconds. A male voice said, "Theta, 9 is operational. No handover authorized. Continue logging." Click. No one called back. I packed my gear. But I couldn't leave. The snowcat I came in on was gone. The garage was empty. No tracks. No fuel drips. Just a single plastic tag on the hook that read, "Asset reassigned, 2024, 0105 inch." That was tomorrow. The lights started blinking again that night. 3 pulses. A pause. Then the tower went dark. Every system shut down. I sat alone in the dark, watching my breath fog in front of me. I ran for the crawl space and grabbed the final drive. Plugged it into my laptop. A single new file had appeared. Duval underscore final. MP4. I opened it. It was me, sitting at the terminal. Right now. But in the video, I was bleeding from the temple. Behind me, the door was open. And something stood there. Not a person. Not quite. Just a shadow blocking out the hallway light. I turned. The room was empty. January 5th came. No one arrived. The sun never rose. Just endless gray light bouncing off the ice. I tried to hike out. I walked 10 miles south and found the same relay station again. Theta, 9. Same scratches on the door. Same upside-down flags. Same shard of glass. I was in a loop. I'm back inside now. The tower lights blink twice a day. I think the system is recording me now, not my reports, not my logs, just my behavior. How long I last. What I'll do. What I'll say. Maybe this is the handover protocol. Maybe I'm the replacement for whoever P was. I don't know who's watching, but I know someone is. The crawl space smells like bleach again. And today, a new note appeared on the terminal. Final phase initiated. Exit not authorized. If anyone reads this, Relay Theta, 9 is not a station. It's a test cage, and the only way out is to finish the log. But I don't know what they're waiting for me to do, or how many others never made it past this point. When I joined NOAA, I thought it'd be coastline work. Ferry rides, wind meters, maybe some hurricane monitoring if I got lucky. But then I got a call about a last-minute replacement opening on a 6-week polar drift station. Nothing complicated, they said. Ice cores, weather logs, lots of downtime. I needed the money. My student loans didn't care about wind chill. I said yes before I knew where I'd be sleeping. The drift station turned out to be a floating metal platform lashed to the skin of the Arctic Ocean. A modular research deck with retrofitted labs, sleeping containers, and a 10-foot fence to keep polar bears out. We were called Astra 4, 3rd-generation prototype. Fully mobile, passive drift across the ice sheet. The idea was to study climate data without interrupting the environment. No engines, no anchors. Just go where the ice went. There were 5 of us. Mags, the lead geophysicist, obsessed with subsurface anomalies. Price, the glaciologist, former Navy, tight-lipped. Lou, our tech lead, younger than me, but terrifyingly smart. Sandra, the admin rep from the NSF. She didn't seem to do much besides take notes. And me, Dana Ornelas, NOAA contractor, data analyst, Arctic rookie. We were supposed to be there for 6 weeks. By week 4, only 3 of us were still sleeping through the night. It started with the cores. Mags and I pulled them twice a day, 5-foot cylinders drilled from beneath the platform. We logged every layer, trapped air, particulate distribution, age markers. But one morning, I logged a chemical spike we couldn't explain. Level 3 benzopyrenes. Petroleum byproducts. I thought it was contamination from the drill. We sterilized and tried again. The next sample showed higher levels. And something else, cesium-137, a radioactive isotope used in reactors and old military devices. The spike didn't follow a natural curve. It was dense, localized, like something had leaked right under us. I flagged it to Lou. She ran diagnostics on the sensors. Then, quietly, she came into my cabin that night and whispered, "I think we're drifting over something." Mags agreed. She'd noticed it too, a gradual drop in magnetic flux that wasn't consistent with drift patterns. "It's like there's metal down there," she said, "buried in the ice shelf." Could it be an old ship? She shook her head. Not that deep, and not with this radiation signature. I wanted to escalate it. Send a report to HQ. That's when Price told me something I still haven't forgiven him for. "We're not transmitting raw data," he said. "Sandra's filtering it." I checked the logs. He was right. Every outgoing packet passed through Sandra's terminal. The chemical markers? Removed. Every anomaly flattened. I confronted her the next morning. She didn't deny it. She just said, "This isn't part of the public brief." I wanted off the platform. We had an emergency beacon, but the uplink had been down since day 2. "Satellite angles," Sandra said. "Temporary." Lou pulled me aside. She'd been logging pings manually. She showed me a file labeled Echo Repeater Archive. It held a string of auto-responses from an off-network node, something not listed in our documentation. The replies were all the same. Data receipt confirmed. Maintain cover. We weren't drifting randomly. We were being steered. That night, Price disappeared. Sandra said he was running a solo perimeter check and probably slipped off the edge. "It happens," she said. He knew the risk, but there were no drag marks. His harness was still in the rack, and the outer gate was locked from the inside. I stopped drilling after that. So did Mags. She stopped talking entirely, actually. Just sat in the lab, rerunning chemical sequences and chain smoking from a stash no one knew she had. Then, 2 days later, she cracked. We found her trying to dump the cores into the melt hole. "Can't leave trace," she kept saying. "They'll know. They'll shut us down." Lou pulled her off the gear. Sandra ordered her confined to quarters. That night, Mag slit her wrists in the gear locker. She used a snapped ice core cutter. I tried to access the backup SATCOM. Password protected. Lou tried to break it. She found something else instead, an encrypted partition on Sandra's terminal labeled Astra_Phase 2. When she cracked it, we found footage. Not of us, but of a different team, on a different platform. Same design, same deck layout. The date stamp said 2014. They looked haggard. One was vomiting. Another had burns. The video ended with static and a single freeze frame of a contaminated glove, labeled Project Echo. Sandra walked in while we were still watching. She looked at us and said, very calmly, "Now you understand. There's no leaving." We locked her in the storage freezer. That gave us one night. Lou and I prepped the skiff, a tiny inflatable meant for short-range ice surveys. Barely held 2 people. We loaded what we could. Survival gear. Samples. Water. We didn't bring the SATCOM unit. It was hardwired. We left just before sunrise. The ice cracked beneath us like thunder. We paddled for 6 hours across slush and broken crust. Then we saw it. A metal plate, half submerged in the blue ice. Cyrillic lettering. Military-style welds. A radiation warning label, faded and torn. This was it. The Echo node. A sunken Soviet capsule, maybe 20 feet across. No hatch. No beacon. Just a sealed hull leaking poison into the world. The ice around it shimmered with oil. I felt my throat burn. Lou took pictures. Started coughing blood. We turned back. But Astra 4 was gone. Not abandoned. Vanished. Not a scrape of metal. Not a scrap of tarp. Just empty wind and crushed snow. I saw one thing left behind. Sandra's flare gun. And 3 black shapes receding toward the horizon. I don't remember what happened next. Only that I woke up in a Norwegian hospital 4 days later. They told me I was found unconscious near a fishing vessel. Lou didn't make it. They wouldn't say how. I told them everything. Showed the footage. Gave them the sample cores I'd stuffed in my coat. They confiscated everything. Said it was classified under cooperative jurisdiction. Even my NOAA badge was revoked. They told me I'd violated protocol, that I was unstable, that Astra 4 never existed. But I remember the benzopyrenes, the cesium, the drowned capsule, and the worst part, I know it's still out there, leaking, echoing, and whatever Astra 5 is, it's already drifting, just like we did. If you've never worked under ice, you don't know what silence means. It's not just the absence of sound. It's the kind that makes your own heartbeat feel like a threat. That's why we train to control breath. Not just for oxygen, for sanity. I've been diving rigs since I was 20. North Sea, Baffin Bay, Beaufort Shelf. Commercial salvage, fuel line patch jobs, even a stint with the Norwegian Navy. You learn to respect cold water. You learn to fear silence when it starts making noise. That's why the tapping made me freeze. 3 dull knocks. From inside the fuel bladder. We were 2 weeks into a routine checkup at the Borneo Camp Satellite Depot, a seasonal Arctic drop point used to store diesel for snowcats and transport choppers. The storage system was basic. One massive flexible fuel bladder tethered beneath the ice, filled during the spring drop and drained during field runs. My job was to check the moorings, valve seals, and hull integrity. You suit up. You descend through the melt hole. You hover in the blue-black void like a tick on a plastic lung the size of a city bus. I'd been down twice already that week. Cold was rough, but visibility had been decent. The third dive changed everything. April 7th, 8:20 hours. Ambient temp, minus 34 degrees Celsius. Wind chill pushing 50 knots. I geared up like usual. Full dry suit, tethered umbilical, comms line clipped to my rig. Technician Vasily monitored me from the surface. We didn't talk much. He wasn't the chatty kind. Descent was normal. Hull temp of the bladder, minus 5 degrees Celsius. Seal joints intact. Flow port read nominal pressure. I floated near the central seam, brushing sediment from a valve tag, when it happened. Knock. Soft. Dull. From the bladder wall. I froze. Knock. Knock. 3 distinct taps. Not random. Not mechanical stutter. They came from inside the tank. I whispered into comms. Control, confirm external noise source. Vasily replied, negative. You have ambient only. No sonar hits. My breath fogged the mask. I put a gloved hand to the bladder wall. It was vibrating. Not pumping. Not venting. Shifting. Like something was moving inside. I surfaced fast. Vasily looked spooked. Everything good. I lied. Valve pressure anomaly. Want to run more diagnostics topside. He nodded. I debriefed with our site lead, Rice, but didn't mention the knocks. Didn't know what to say. Next morning, Rice pulled me aside. Said the pressure in the tank had risen 2 psi overnight. That wasn't possible. Bladder systems don't pressurize unless actively pumped. We weren't pumping anything. Worse, the external pressure sensor had logged a brief vacuum event inside the tank. Something inside was displacing fuel. He asked if I noticed any warping in the hull. I told him no. I was lying again, because I'd gone back to the footage. Helmet cam logs. There, at timestamp 17 hours, 3 minutes and 14 seconds, you could see it. A subtle ripple under the polymer skin of the bladder. A push, like a hand tracing from the inside. Followed by 3 taps. I should have refused the next dive. I should have packed up and left. Instead, I ran a thermal scan. We weren't supposed to. The tank had no active heating, and fuel stays too stable for heat maps to matter. But I wanted to see if there was variation. The scan showed a faint cold spot, dead center. Not round, not symmetrical, not hardware-shaped. It looked like a void, almost like a curled shape. Dense. I asked Vasily what the tank held before this deployment. He shrugged. Same as always. Diesel. Jet A mix. I asked if they ever repurposed gear. He hesitated. Soviet-era bladder. Restitched. Was used near Franz Josef Land in 87. I stared at him. 87. He shrugged again. Reinforced. Still works. I reviewed old field logs. Found one incident. Buried in a scanned PDF. Structural collapse during fuel transfer. Franz Josef Depot 3. Site abandoned. Hull integrity uncertain. No follow-up. No retrieval. No cleanup report. They didn't remove the bladder. They patched it. Shipped it here. I was diving into a grave. April 9th, dive 4. I told Rice we needed to drain the bladder and halt all refueling. He brushed me off. It's stable. I said I'd go down one last time. get a core sample from the inner valve skin. That was a lie, too. I wanted to confirm what I feared. I wanted to see the knock. 8:47 hours. Water temp, -1. 9 degrees Celsius. Umbilical tight. Visibility, for meters. I descended to the base of the bladder, stabilized with hand grips, and turned off my helmet light. Then I waited. 10 minutes passed. The water pressed against my ears like wet concrete. Then, tap. My whole rig jolted. Tap, tap, louder, directly beneath me. I swung the helmet cam down and turned on IR. The bladder pulsed. From inside, something moved. A limb, bent, jointed, curled in the fluid like it had grown used to the cold. My chest locked. I pulled the ascent line. The umbilical didn't budge. Something had snagged it. Vasily's voice crackled. Status. I couldn't speak. The bladder rippled again. I released my harness and kicked off hard. As I reached the surface hole, the tether snapped, not pulled. Bitten. I gasped as hands dragged me out of the hole. Rice was there. Vasily. 2 others. I didn't even remove my mask. Just screamed, drain it. Now. Drain it. Rice went pale. He saw my tether. He saw the marks. They brought in a vacuum rig that afternoon. It took 3 hours to empty the bladder. Fuel came out cloudy, streaked with dark threads. At 16% volume, pressure spiked. We heard it from the deck, a long, drawn-out crack like a whale's jaw opening. The bladder caved from within. It didn't rupture. It imploded, and something breached the surface, slick, dark, shaped like tubing, but with texture, bone-like, cracked. Then it sank. We never saw it again. Samples were taken. We weren't told by whom. A week later, a helicopter arrived. Russian registry. 2 men in unmarked parkas escorted Rice into the chopper. He didn't come back. A day after that, Vasily left without saying goodbye. They sealed the depot, told us to leave everything. That was 6 months ago. I can't sleep near water now. Diesel smells like blood. Every now and then, when I'm alone, I swear I hear it again. Not sound. Vibration. 3 slow taps. Somewhere in my chest. Somewhere waiting for me to dive.